Hello, this is Richard Hooper and I'm from SatTV Week. Now I'm pleased to be joined by Ken Peterman of Viasat Government Systems. Ken, thank you for joining us today. Now tell me a little bit more about government systems and its role in the market.
Well, Viasat's in a very unique place in the market, especially in the defense market, because fundamentally we're a commercial company with fielding enormous, unprecedented capabilities, especially in satellite communications, mobile networking, and cybersecurity. And we have a culture of innovation and a culture that unleashes employees to chase their passions and work on those things they're really passionate about. So we have 6,000 employees, about 3,000 are engineers, and about 1,000 are veterans. So we're taking advantage right now of unleashing our veterans and our engineers' passion to bring unprecedented technology to the warfighter. Technology that in many cases the defense industrial base invented, mobile networking, satellite communications, cybersecurity. But now the technology trajectories are accelerating and steepening with this private sector investment and agile development techniques. And so we're able to bring unprecedented technology now back from commercial to defense to create a kind of a technology dividend for DoD where they don't have to invent anymore. They can unleash this private sector to bring capability to the warfighter more affordably and more rapidly than ever before.
But what's the advantage for, say, the DoD looking at what's happening in the commercial sector?
Well, I think that you see it in General Raymond's Space Force vision, his enterprise SatCom vision, where for the first time we see a purposeful statement that says we're going to look at commercial SATCOM technology, we're going to assess it, adopt it, evolve it, and make it part of a blended network where we're bringing commercial together with military so that warfighters can roam among all the various network choices to create a resilient, secure capability that gives them unprecedented speed and capacity. It improves affordability and allows them, this enterprise architecture, it allows them to bolt on or adopt new networks as new technologies come on board, whether that be free space optics or V-band or whatever it might be. You see it with LEOs, okay? So we have capabilities today where our subscribers are roaming among KU and KA band, they're roaming among satellites of different vendors, they're roaming among the GEO and MEO orbital regimes. These networks use different ground infrastructures, and so it enables a resilient, more secure capability for DoD to take advantage of. So I think it's an unprecedented opportunity, and you're seeing it with our Space Force in the enterprise SATCOM vision.
Now, are there any issues with this move from commercial to military? Are there any adaptations that need to take place?
Well, of course there will be, but I think that in many cases that's what the assessment, adoption, and evolution phase means. I mean, when these commercial networks are modeled and simulated in a military context, in a warfighter context, in the presence of maneuver, in the presence of contested environments, degraded environments, operationally limited environments, when they're assessed in that context, we can see quantitatively and empirically where the shortfalls or the gaps might be. Or, in some cases, we see the unprecedented performance improvement against some of our legacy military equipment, maybe in the presence of jamming or the presence of kinetic strike to the ground infrastructure or things like that. So we can spot or identify both the opportunity and the gaps as we assess these commercial networks in a warfighter context. And that's what in many ways, that's what the Space Force is looking to do. Now, that will enable the military to fully exploit and leverage these commercial networks, and it'll also help industry, the private sector, focus their investment dollars, if they so choose, to close some of those capability gaps or make these networks even more useful in a military context.
So how do you future-proof these solutions?
Well, what we've done is we've advocated an open architecture or an architectural standard at the network layer. Okay, what that does is it enables you to bolt on new, emergent, cutting-edge, innovative networks simply by applying a software translation layer, okay, at that network interface. So, for example, it unleashes innovation and embraces innovation because new networks may use wholly new concepts that aren't envisioned today. So if the architecture is open at the network layer, it enables you to bolt on those networks as easily and simply as possible and not force new networks to comply to aging standards. In other words, 5G is different than 4G, 4G is different than 2G. So the interoperability is important, but we don't want to constrain the innovation when we make 5G all that it can be.
So, looking at the United States Space Force, what are the key performance drivers that they're looking for as they come to a company like Viasat?
Well, there's a couple things. I think there's a knowledge that if they invent the next generation purpose-built SATCOM system, it will take a decade or more. It'll cost billions of dollars. And by the time it is, inevitably, by the time it's fielded, the threat's moving faster than that. Technology's moving faster than that. So we have an acquisition system in many ways that, while it has a noble history predicated on invention of things that have never been done before, satellite communications, GPS, all those kind of things, smartphones and mobile networking, we're all born in defense. But what you're seeing now is the technology envelope is moving faster than the acquisition process can move. So the space enterprise architecture seeks to harvest that as a kind of technology dividend. And I think, largely, the time has come to do that.
Now, adaptive hybrid networks, we talked about networks, but this comes up, adaptive hybrid networks. What does that actually mean?
Well, adaptive is in, the Space Vision agrees with what Viasat's been implementing from beginning in about 2001, where we allowed in-flight airborne subscribers to roam globally across a global satellite network that we pieced together by leasing bandwidth from a variety of different third parties. We weren't a satellite provider in 2001. We were a service provider. We only built our satellites later. So we've stitched together a network. It requires 3 or 4 critical elements. It requires terminals that are multi-network capable so that they can adapt or roam onto whatever the best network is in that geography. And I mean what the best network for them might depend on their use case. Are they streaming video or are they doing something else? The second thing it requires is a net manager in order to rapidly move terminals among these different choices. And the third thing it requires is situational awareness and a common operating picture so that we know what every device is on our network, what apps it's running, so that we can place those devices, the net manager can place those devices on the network that provides them the best performance envelope for their use case.
And what about the terminals? Are there any specific demands actually on the terminals that are being used?
Yeah, there always will be. And so what we have is a third-party terminal program that invites third-party terminal providers to work with us to make sure their terminals can operate on the networks we build or the networks we operate. And we have a kind of a certification program that enables that. Part of that is so that the terminals can provide the best user experience possible by always being on the best network. But the other part of it is we want to implement a holistic cyber defense across the whole of the network, and that involves the terminals as well as the ground infrastructure, as well as a satellite. So for that cyber security capability to be a real defense in depth, we want to be able to make sure the terminal isn't a weak link in that.
Now, I'm going to pick you up on cybersecurity. 18 months ago, it was in the news all the time, cybersecurity. Are people losing sight of this and forgetting about it when it is still a clear and present danger?
Well, the cyber threat vectors are accelerating rapidly in large part because they're enabled by these same technology trajectories that are enabling the satellite networks and the ground infrastructure to move so fast and to get better all the time. So those same technology trajectories are enabling cyber threats and to accelerate faster too. I don't know that people are losing sight of it. I think that in large part companies like ours and the network we operate are implementing such a holistic cyber defense in depth, leveraging machine learning and AI and kinds of things in order to do behavior analytics and big data analytics on how the network operates and what the threats to the network are, but then also starting to become predictive even about where the cyber threats will appear next and how they will behave. And so artificial intelligence is really coming to play into that arena to help.
So looking forward, how is it going to develop? What are the new things you're working on as we move forward into this new space arena?
Well, as you know, that in late 21 or 22, we're going to field our Viasat 3 constellation of satellites, and they have unprecedented capacity. So, for example, if DoD moved their entire satellite use case to our constellation in 2022 or 2023, they would only use a fraction, maybe 1% of our network capacity. Then when you put on LEO constellations and MEO constellations that also have enormous capacity, DoD has an unprecedented opportunity to roam among all these different networks. It's sort of like They don't have to own the automobile, and they don't have to lease the automobile anymore. They can download the Uber app, the SatCom Uber app, and just roam among these various networks and only pay for what they really use. And so there's affordability improvement, and there's also a resiliency improvement that is unprecedented.
Well, Ken, exciting times. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Richard.